You know, these are guys of our cousin. I'm helping to coach as well. You know, these are guys of our cousin. I'm helping to coach you. I'm doing.
Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. You know, these are guys of our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow.
What do you do after you read? What do you do after you know all, right? And you can say that you're truly conscious. How are you putting what you know into action?
Hey, what is up? This is your host, Jasmine Gates. We are back again with another episode on New Black History Makers. Running a little late, but we're here. And as you can see, I'm not by myself. I'm joined by Sasha. Hello. And Cara. As you can see, if you're on Facebook or if you can look on the YouTube. I always say the Facebook and the YouTube, and that's so old. But if you can see, we're talking about church hurt today. So we all grew up in the church, and we all have our own individual experiences. So we wanted to shed some light on that, and it's a conversation that is definitely very present in the Black community. So we're just going to bring a light on that. But yeah, so let's start off with some introductions and stuff. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing very well. Okay. Very well. It could be a little cooler.
Right. It is.
It's at 100 degrees in my car on the way here. I was like, what is going on?
Right.
It was just raining a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's really random.
Right. It is really random. So yeah, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm actually loving the weather.
Yeah.
Yes. I am loving it. Next week is going to be cool again. I love the heat, so I'm kind of excited. I'm from the desert, so
that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I grew up
I
in.
Oh, I didn't know
used
that.
to it.
Yeah, I grew up in the Inland Empire, so it's kind of normal for me.
It's not far. No, it's not far.
Yeah. So, I always mention this if you watch the beginning of our show. So I'm big on not just asking the generic, how are you doing, but then also getting some other question in. There was an article I was reading, and it basically just said start to ask people other questions outside of how you're doing, because we have a very natural response, oh, okay, it's good or whatever. So I pull a question every week, and then this one for this week for you guys is, how could you have shown yourself more grace this week?
That's a very good question.
Wow. When it comes to my career, I think I put a lot of weight on myself. And, we have a schedule that we break down from month to week to day. And when I'm unable to do those things, I feel unaccomplished. I feel like I'm not doing what I need to do. And realizing as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, you're actually making progress.
Right.
And that's something I have to remember daily, actually, not just weekly.
Right. I love that. How about you?
I respect that. Really, I work full time. I go to school full time, and it's a lot. And I find myself putting a lot of pressure on myself to be perfect in those areas, because I feel like before this season of my life, I felt like perfection equates success.
Yes.
Looking a certain way, being a certain way, having certain accomplishments. And this week alone, I'm just I had to relinquish everything and just take my time and just slow down.
Right.
So I think that's the way that I extended myself grace, not feeling the need to always be on.
Right.
Throughout this entire week. That was my way of extending grace.
That
was a good question, though.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was
a
thinker.
For mine, I recently, I'll say at the end of last year, I was kind of forced because of my health to basically rest Mondays and Tuesdays. So I talked about it a little bit a few shows back, but I had started chemotherapy because of my arthritis. So the chemotherapy basically knocks you out. So you don't have a choice to still get up and move. And me being an entrepreneur, it's something that I just always do, but I was forced to kind of sit down. So my Mondays and Tuesdays had to naturally just be rest days. Now that I'm not on the chemotherapy, I told myself when I was on it that I would keep Mondays as a rest day, at least Mondays. So this week I kind of just didn't do anything at all on Monday. And it's still like a hard process of like, okay, no, it's okay to just sit down and give yourself rest, even if it's not being forced on you by, like a health condition or something like that. So it's like interesting how much I had to tell myself on Monday, like, no, it's okay that you're not doing anything, so giving myself like grace in that aspect of being like, okay, you can rest, like, resting is okay, like, you don't have to be running around all the time. And I'm like, I guess we can go into and figure out where that comes from, but I say internally, like as an individual, it's like it feels like it just came on, like, like you just have this desire to not rest, or like resting it just feels bad, like it's like, where did that come from? Like, where did I get that
It's
from?
a cultural
It
thing,
is.
for sure.
Hustle, right?
Yeah, if you're not doing something, you're not doing anything.
Right.
You need to
I'll rest when I die.
go to work.
Yeah,
all
that's toxic.
But it's a real mentality, all gas, no brakes.
Right.
If you take a break, or if you're looked at not, or if you feel like you're not doing things, a lot of people feel like they're not moving, or they're not doing what needs to be done, or they're falling behind.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's that. We'll go into we want to know who you are. So of course the show is called New Black History Makers. You guys are definitely New Black History Makers. So we want to know about what you guys have going on, what you're doing. Give us a little introduction.
Sure. I can go. So my name is Cara Craig. I am a should I talk to you, or should I look? Because the camera's over here. So my name is Cara Craig. I am a Los Angeles native. I went to school actually around the corner from here, Hamilton High School, and I went on and graduated, got my diploma, went to Cheney University of Pennsylvania, first HBCU alumna. I was a pageant queen there, a 4-year student ambassador. So really into the like new Black history thing, HBCUs, supporting that movement. Upon graduating from college, I moved back to Los Angeles with my family. I have 5 years of experience in various industries, being an executive support specialist, the financial industry, medical device industry, fashion industry, finance industry. So it's been a ride, but I think the thing that I take the most pride in is my show, Lights, Camera, Cara, where I run my mouth about my various opinions. So I have a lot of them, and I created it because my family, they're always making fun of me, like, oh, that's her 2 cent, that's Dr. 2 cent over there. So I'm in a master's program. I work full time. I do my show, and I'm just rolling with the punches at this point.
Right. Yeah, I love it. And this is actually my cousin. So
Yeah.
I think it's the first time I've had, well, at least on this run of shows. So this is episode 13, but a family member on this show. So
wow, I'm happy you invited me.
Yeah.
Thank you, because family be family. But
right.
I'm happy to be here.
Right. Yes. All right, Sasha.
I'm Sasha Pelham. I am a real estate professional. I work out of Beverly Hills. We specialize in luxury real estate, but our passion is for first-time home buyers. We do a lot of things in our community to help create generational wealth and push creating generational wealth. I'm also a part of the California Board of Realtors, because before 1969, people of color could not be real estate agents. So we had to create our own board. Right. 69.
My mother was born.
Right. It's not that far back, right? Yeah. So we can be real estate agents. We could sell real estate, but not licensed. And if you don't have a license, there's certain things you just can't do, like paperwork and stuff like that. Like I said, we specialize in luxury real estate, but we concentrate on helping create generational wealth in our communities, because we realize people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't know that it's possible for you to buy. You might not get that dream home first, but we can put together a strategy and get you there as soon as possible, right? So that's pretty much it. I'm a church girl at heart.
We're gonna get into that.
Right.
Yeah.
We all are.
But that's it for the most part as far as work. If you guys have any real estate needs, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
So if you're on, or if you are not, go ahead. At the bottom of the screen, you can find our Instagram. They are both tagged in our most recent post. So you can follow them and then get more information from them and whatever they have going on. And then it's interesting, the realtist bit that she mentioned, because we talked about it, and I was introduced to it when I was doing the research for Bruce's Beach. So when I was figuring out, or not figuring out, but just getting more information, because not a lot of us, but when I went down there for Breonna Taylor's event, the Breonna Taylor event that we threw in June of 2020, all I knew was that, it was once Black owned, and that was it. And that the white politicians and the white citizens basically pushed them out. But there was a lot of like legalities and a lot of different things that they went through. There was a lot with with the realtists and with laws that they were trying to push, laws that were like not laws and stuff. So there was a lot of information there. So when she mentioned that, I was like, oh wow, like I have something to connect it to. But a lot of these, I'm gonna butcher the word, but what is it when not the land ordinances? I probably should just let it go. But when they take the land basically and try to say that the something dominant, oh Lord, or dominant domain, something. What is it called?
Dominating domain.
That's when they take it and try to use it for something that's like beneficial to the city. Yeah. So that's essentially what they did. Or
encumbrance as well, where they'll take your property and utilize it for city use.
Yeah.
And they have access to it at any time.
Right. So that was essentially what happened with Bruce's Beach. And then what people don't know is that the land sat for over 30 years, basically, until somebody decided that they were going to do their thesis on it. And the city had kind of got nervous and was like, oh, if he's going to do his thesis on it, more people are going to know about it. So then that's when what we see now on the grass plot, that's when they put that there. But yeah, more you know.
I just learned about Bruce's Beach, and that was a crazy story, but it just speaks to, it makes me wonder, like, how many stories are out there that are untold because of just the disdain for Black people and Black culture, and it's very disheartening. I just learned about that Bruce's Beach like in the last year, so that's crazy.
And the story that I also wanted to push with them is that they were entrepreneurs, and that in the midst of the negative chaos or the racism and stuff, their business thrived for almost 12 years. Wow. And that's something that they just tell the story about the land getting taken, but they were on that land. They were able to build a second resort. Like, if you think about a Black person owning a resort on the water, we don't even really see that now. No. So it's to see it back then, right, in the 1920s. And when I did the lecture for it, I was just like, that's what I want people to take away from it, that they were entrepreneurs and that they thrived for almost 12 years and were able to build on their business in the midst of, a very, very racist time, so they were entrepreneurs. Racism, all of that. They were able to. So that wasn't it, but that wasn't tied into what we were supposed to talk about. Right. We can always talk about some Black history. Right. We can always do that. So before we go on our next break, we have a few minutes. Our first break, I'm sorry, but we're going to get into the topic. So like we said, we are church girls and we are talking about church hurt. It is something, I know it's not exclusive to the Black community. I know this is something that everybody kind of experiences, and I'm wondering, why is it something that we all experience? Why is it such a hot topic? Just why? What is it? What's up with church hurt? Why are they hurting people in the church? We want to know. So let's kind of just establish like our relationship to church and denominations or whatever, all that. I can go first. Y'all can go. I can go. Okay, so yeah, I'm Kojic. We knew that. Be in church all day, So for people that do not know, it's an acronym for Church of God in Christ. So so if you're in LA, like West Angeles, that would be, I guess, like a landmark. If you're not familiar with Kojic churches, that would be what I would say. If you're familiar with like Mary, they came from church. I mean, everybody came from Kojic, but Mary, I know for sure. The Clark sisters, Kiera Sheard. There's so many, but those are like some of the big names that came from our great grand old church. But so my parents are pastors, ministers. My grandfather was a preacher, so majority of my life I was under his leadership in our church, and then now I'm at another church in Mount Sinai, Church of God in Christ. But yeah, so that's my. I heard the Church of God in Christ. So I'm still Kojic. Of course, I don't see myself getting out of that. But and it's interesting too because I didn't start mentioning because we're cousins, but my grandfather is the only one that is Kojic. So out of our grandfathers are brothers, and there was 15 siblings. Out of those 15, there were 4 preachers, and then there's the next generation became preachers, and then there's preachers on down from there. So out of the 4 brothers that were preachers, my grandfather was the only one. He married my grandmother. My grandmother's family was Kojic, so he kind of like converted. But my majority of my grandfather's side is Baptist, and that's not something I probably just started talking about that recently.
Yeah, but our granddad's mom was Baptist.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and that's my church experience, my church whatever facts,
church card facts,
right? And anybody?
I am Kojic as well. Born and raised Kojic. I grew up with my grandmother. So I grew up under tent revivals and yes, tent revivals.
What's because I know what a revival is. What is a tent revival?
What's a tent revival? A tent revival is when they would literally get a big old white tent and put it outside, and it just for some reason it made it more comfortable for people just to come up off the street rather than going to the church, and they would have church all night in the dust. Like all night, yes. People rolling in under the chairs in the dirt. But it was life-changing, and yeah, I'm Kojic. I grew up at a church called Fountain of Life Temple Church of God in Christ. And I am now at Mount Sinai Church of God in Christ as well. Shout out to Mount Sinai.
Also, you're congregants at the same church.
Yeah, we go to
the same church. Gotcha. I didn't know that.
Yes,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So I grew up Baptist, and I grew up under my grandfather's leadership. I went between when I was in my mother's custody, I went to my grandfather's church, and when I was in my dad's custody, I went to his church. So my dad is one of the grandkids that became pastors, and everybody was Baptist for a while. I think, so that's my association. That's where I grew up, and now I go to my own church. It's Resurrection Church. In Carson, California, and that's just because I needed to get away from the family. And I'm happy there. Pastor Joe Robinson is the pastor, and it's a really cool experience. I feel like it meets the needs that I have, but it's always good to go home and visit.
Yes, it is. That's cool. So then, preacher's kid as well. Yeah,
preacher's kid,
right?
Grandchild. Yeah. So it's generational.
Yeah,
it's
really heavy, and it's interesting because it's natural for us, but when I mention it to people and how the lineage is, and they're like, "Oh, so you just come from preachers," and I'm like, not that I thought it was normal for people to come from preachers.
I thought it was normal. I didn't know anybody outside of church.
I didn't know.
I didn't know anybody outside of family. I didn't know anybody outside of church.
And our whole family did it.
Yeah, everyone very much so was like in the same pot. So.
It's an interesting thing, and I always tell people when this topic comes up or when they speak about churches, because of the amount of numbers of preachers that are in our family, we have experiences with people that have not maybe held their calling the right way, and experiences with some of them that have, held their calling up or that have at least tried to be intentional. So I'm like, I get it. I get it because I've seen my own blood fall short, and I've seen my own blood kind of succeed, like in their salvation or in their call or whatever. So I'm always understanding of how people kind of are disappointed with the church and stuff. But then also, of course, as you can see, I still am a very active, like,
you get to a point where you reconcile for yourself.
For
sure.
Exactly.
Right.
For
yourself. Not
work
because
it out
of this person or that person or any of that. Like, it's just for me at this point.
Right. So before we go on the break, let's define what church hurt is, because I feel like it is an umbrella, but it's so much. So what would y'all say basically?
In the episode that I had, I described church hurt as it is any sort of trauma that a person experiences directly from church. It can be emotional trauma, it can be financial trauma, it can be social trauma, but at the root of it is church. It happened in church, it happened because of church, it has something to do with church. So just trauma.
Right.
Sure.
I agree. I would like to piggyback on that just a little bit, like action and inaction, right? I think a lot of times people think of hurt of something that somebody did, but I think a lot of time in church, people are hurt because of inactions as well.
Yeah.
Things people didn't do.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do under that umbrella of trauma, of breaking down exactly what that trauma is, you know?
Right. Right. And then why do we think it's such a hot topic? Why is it something that a lot of people speak about, or that when you're talking about church, it's like, or people not going to church, that's like, they talk about the building funds and church hurt. Those are like the two top things.
With the
and I'm like,
right, with the highlighter. Highlighted up to the number.
I low-key forgot about that.
People that don't go to church, that is their first thing. And then the second one is
funny.
they've experienced some kind of hurt. So it's a hot topic in these streets, but why? Why is it such a hot topic?
Distrust. I think it's a trust issue, right? Especially when it comes to money. We can talk about that a little bit. Growing up, we had a lot of building funds. We had a lot of offerings. We seen a lot of prosperity messages come in, and it took away from the actual gospel, and people seen that and they felt it, where we hear stories, or we've heard stories of the preachers driving a Cadillac and the people on welfare. You know what I mean? So I think that brought a lot of trust issues in. And then when it comes to church hurt, I think that's multifold. Like, the church hasn't always been as graceful as it should be to people who aren't in the church.
The church is judgmental.
Yes.
The church.
Let's get into it.
Right, let's get into it. Let's go deep.
The church is judgmental, and they like to put people in chokeholds. The way I see it, especially women. Like, I'm at this point in my life now where I'm not this little girl running around somebody's church, running around my dad or my granddad's church. Like, I'm a young woman, and seeing things very differently. I'm seeing things very differently as a woman than I did as a child. Yeah. And I think that sometimes the church really just, it limits and it chokeholds women. And even from the discussion of us coming in, we had a discussion when we came in, and I have on this beautiful blouse dress, but I also had on a blazer, and it kind of rises on the sides a little bit. But to, make you all more comfortable, I put this on my legs about church hurt. And I want you all to focus on what I'm saying rather than this area down here. And that's just a small example of how they micromanage women in church. And also, it's like there's a lot of pressure to be, for me, be married in church. If you're not married, you're not an honest woman. Like, so what am I supposed to do as a single woman? Am I supposed to go for a while? I felt like put out of church because I'm like, I'm not married, and no one that I know, I go to the church and no one's in charge that's related to me. So maybe I just need to scoot on out. Because I don't want to be out of place. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, I get that. I really do get that. So we're going to continue this part of the conversation about this chokehold that y'all been putting on us when we come back from the commercials. But yeah, so this is church hurt. Be sure to send this to somebody if you haven't already. Send it to somebody so that they can chime in. And we got comments and all of that. But yeah, I'm really bad with timing these things, and I can see the timer. Yeah, I haven't. We'll look at it when we go on the commercial, but I'm gonna get better with this. We're gonna operate in excellence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Black excellence.
Right. All right.
Spirit
We'll be
excellence.
back after these commercials.
In today's world, everything is about customization. That's why I'm here to tell y'all about Wolf Customs. We can get any and everything customized. I'm talking about t-shirts, sweaters, even cell phone cases. If you have a business or a company or a brand, you probably got a website. You need something custom that's fit to tailor your business to separate you from the competition. Wolf Customs takes large orders and one-of-one orders. So if you got that special event, best you holler at Wolf Customs. You can get custom mouse pads, custom AirPod cases. I mean, it never ends. Tap in with Wolf Customs. Find them on Instagram @_Wolf Customs_. And get your personal touch today.
You're seriously watching porn by yourself? Oh, wait, that's the wrong script. Oh, that's right. I'm here to talk about the Primos Chidos radio show, live every Thursday at 12 from the TGN Latinx station. Make sure you tune in for some laughs, maybe some crying, and definitely some stupid takes. I'll see you guys there.
Hey, beautiful people. It is the baddest bitch on the block, Eric Devante.
And it's me, Kelvin Unique, and we are the Get Right Radio Show.
Here on TGN Talk. Are you going to church on Sunday?
Hell no, I'll be right here live at 10. We got all the celebrity entertainment news with my favorite segment.
Bitch, you better read.
And you know, of course, I'm going to get you right and get you out that door spiritually with some uniquely speaking.
Oh, I need it. The kids need it. And this is why y'all need to tune into us every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here only on TGN Talk.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Alex Himes from Courtside Radio. We love to have you tuning in every Monday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. right here on the Good News Radio Network. Don't forget to tune in every week, people. We'll see you then.
Got a cough, allergies, mucus buildup, or do you just want to boost your immune system overall? Well, at the Organic Option, we make it easy to get your plant-based nutrients daily with organic tinctures and herbal capsules. Just put a few drops of tincture in your water, tea, or juice of your choice, and you'll be on your way to a healthier lifestyle in no time. Super blends like sea moss, bladderwrack, turmeric, and ginger, the mucus buster. We've got the organic solutions you need to keep your body at its best. Shop now at trytheorganicoption.com and use the promo code GOODNEWS for 30% off your order. Once again,
business owners, are you looking to take your business a step forward? Are you looking for more people to know what you have to offer? You are in luck. The Good News Radio has a special deal for you right now. You can get a commercial slot 4 times a day, every day for a month. If you are
Can't hear us. Hey y'all, we're back talking about church hurt. So before we left, also if you just saw the flyer that was on the screen, that was probably the first time you saw it, because that's the first time I put it anywhere. But we're celebrating 4 years with New Black History Makers. So our 4-year is in May, but we're gonna celebrate on April 30th. So we'll be at Peace of Mind in Compton. We did a lot of events there in 2018, so I thought it would be cool to go back there to do the 4-year anniversary, because this is getting ready to take us into that 5th year, and you know they say the 5th year, that's when people start falling off. So I need y'all prayers. So come to the event, bring your prayers and bring money, come shop too. We'll have some new designs and all of that, but that's the flyer. I'll post it again, and then you'll be seeing it circulating around and all of that. But we are getting back into the conversation. So Cara mentioned the sexism. We're just gonna call it out. Gonna call it out. My dad hates when I say that the church God in Christ is a little sexist.
It's a crisis.
It is.
It's a crisis. And you know, I like the video you posted. It was reposting one of the Marys. Okay. And she was talking about how she wears her outfits for her album covers, and how the church, basically, there were people, not the whole church, but people in the church that were calling her all sorts of derogatory
She wore that white
names.
Dress.
Yeah, that was it. And I thought she looked beautiful.
Yeah. They said she was too sexy to be
sanctified.
sanctified.
They need to go somewhere. I think she looked beautiful.
Right.
And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about the chokehold. Like, stop policing women.
Yeah. And I think there's wait, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree. I don't think there's enough discipline taught to the men in the church. Yeah. And we're taught to overdo it to ensure that we don't make the brothers fall into sin.
Listen, let me tell you something. They're going to fall regardless. If they're going to fall, God is going to bring them back. But it's like, that's a lot of responsibility to put on an individual. And it's sad. I don't like it.
Yeah. Something I was telling my therapist is, growing up, I think, in any church, especially when you grow up with older people, because I'm like, that experience that you get in the church, I was growing up, or I was around mothers that were in their 90s at 5. You know, like those were the women that they had us looking to in the YWCC classes, or the ones that the women that were over us in our youth classes and stuff, they were over them. So we were getting this information from older women, and that's not necessarily something that everybody is privy to. It's not relevant, and then everybody is privy to. You think about back in the day, my grandmother's generation, they weren't going to the movies. Right. Going to the movies was a sin.
Or wearing makeup.
My mother's generation was, well, grandmothers and mothers, was no pants. Now we're coming out of that. So we not.
I mean, I have.
They were.
I wear pants,
there,
but
you
is it
know,
accepted? I
right.
mean, that's the thing. I wear pants,
And that's what because maybe 15 years ago.
I didn't wear pants when I was in ministry. That's
Right.
because of my denomination. I know what is expected.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I know what's expected. And if you're going to minister, or if you're
not required.
Yes, but expected. But because if you're going to minister, or if you could be called to minister, to work the altar or something like that, you need to be dressed correctly.
Yeah.
And that correct is a dress.
Right.
So
yeah. And what I was saying was, with my therapist, I was telling her that because I grew up with this expectation, right, to not necessarily want to offend people, right, or to wear skirts, or to have the stockings on, or to do this,
and
or you have to look a certain you have to look a certain way. It brought forth a lot of anxiety, right? So I naturally took on this more conservative attire
approach,
regardless of where I was. So even the fact of us knowing it would have been, girls would have came in here and been like, oh, you just gonna get whatever you're gonna get. I'm not putting nothing on my leg, right? But because we're there, and I think it can be tied into a form of anxiety. And I want to also highlight that too, that church hurt doesn't always have to be what somebody did to you. It can also be the boundaries or the practices that you upheld that were not needed to be upheld to maintain your faith. And I think that was something, especially with the pants thing. Now let me tell y'all this. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the way that I think women in the church, specifically to the women in the Church of God in Christ, that they have really turned this corner. Now I get that you guys are individuals, and that you guys came into some type of knowledge of your own and said, this is not something that's mandatory, so we're going to change it. But I would have wished that you guys would have been more willing to speak up when it was being said to you back then, instead of going your whole life and pushing us to believe that this was something that was right and that you believed in, and then turning 40 and 50 and saying, no, I'm doing away with it. I just wish that we had a little more of a backbone when we were being told these things. And I get it, because I grew up Kojic, and I get how intimidating it is. But it's really concerning to me that there's a lot of women who really believe that for a long time, and they changed, and they're in the pulpit wearing them. And I'm like, but I'm still dealing with the PTSD of that. And you've been able to heal or do whatever and move on, but we hadn't had a conversation about it, about what that did. That y'all made us feel like we was going to hell if we wore pants.
My grandmother, till this day, if I leave from church at her house with pants on, it's a discussion.
Yeah,
it's not even I'm 35. It's a discussion.
It's a whole nother ball game. In the Baptist church, they just want us to wear skirts and stockings all the time,
right?
And then that's a lot. I stopped doing that.
And I think, and I don't wear pants in the church, but I don't wear stockings. I will come in with, I didn't wear Crocs to church. I'll do tennis shoes. And it's crazy because I'll say I wore Crocs to church, and that's not bad.
It's not a sin.
It's just dressed down.
But my great grandmother is probably upset about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But and it's those things. I think we need to be mindful of that, because there's mental constructs that we develop for those of us that were really born and raised in the church. And then also, we're speaking to the older generation, because you guys were the ones that were in charge of us, but then also be cognizant of how this manifests in you, because there were the older generation, right? Because you still benefited from, or not benefited, but you still experienced some form of anxiety.
For instance, we went to a panel, and there was a lady over 50, 60 still talking about a mother that wiped makeup off of her face and the effect it had on her. But it was something she remembered because it had an effect on her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wow. So it's like, even now. So it's like, even now.
Wait, so how did this happen? What was she, was she just in church and the lady just came and wiped her face?
She said off? Did she have glasses on? And she kind of was like, you need to take that off.
Yeah. And then, but that rooted something in her, it caused you now to be conscious of, I need to know how to move so this doesn't happen again, because it's embarrassing. It's it's a lot of things.
And I never put makeup on again.
And that mother probably in her heart was doing the best she knew to do, but it was still something that
provoke someone to go and physically put their
So
hands on
that's
someone?
that's another
that's
thing.
another conversation. We're gonna get to these questions too, but that's another conversation. Is I was thinking the other day that you have people that have literally said, and then also I see you guys in the comments. I saw Jasmine. Thank you for commenting. You said, "Wow," I'm not sure what you said "wow" about, but thank you for being here. You have people that have justified their negative actions through their relationship with God. Or through the Bible. They said
the Bible.
Yeah. Or
And
they
they
said
misrepresent
because
God.
right, because God said that this is not permissible, I'm going to then act this way towards you. And my response to that was, well, God knows more about what I was doing than you do, and he still, is being gracious, or is still giving me an opportunity to come out of that or do whatever. But that's what it is that people are so empowered by the fact that they feel like they know how God feels as it relates to sin. And they're empowered by it, and then they go and they reenact these things to people, and then they hurt people, and it's like, and God's like, no, that's not my heart concerning that person.
And a lot of times they do it in the name of God.
When it's really them.
Yeah.
It's them. It's something in them that has disdain for whatever you're doing.
Right.
And they take it upon themselves to be holier than thou for whatever reason.
Right.
And they take action when it's like, you're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to be worshiping God. You're supposed to be loving the Lord and operating from him, not just doing whatever you're doing.
No, for sure. So experiences. So I can go down a list, but we can pick one or just something, right? That's like not too hectic or crazy. Or if you want to go there, we can go there.
I don't want to go there.
But anything, I mean, and it can like I said, that it I think one of the questions was like, is it and you mentioned it too, is it the actual impact or what happened after? Is it the fact that nobody came to your rescue after? I think that's a lot of the stuff. Is like, okay, I can take the initial impact, but I thought this was a place of safety.
Right. There was no justice.
There wasn't that.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I think that was my experience too. I ended up kind of like just leaving after my like experiences, my big experience with like church hurt. I ended up just leaving because you look around and everyone felt the same.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. Yeah. Everyone felt the exact same. Everyone felt like they were justified in their actions. And I was 18. I left my parents' house. I left the entire church. And I'm good. But you look around and you're helpless, and nobody understood, or nobody even thought. I mean, until this day, and this is something that I've said often, no one even asked me, well, how are you? How did this affect you? What, and yeah, no one asked anything, and they still ain't asked today, but to God be the glory. But yeah, so you look around and there's nobody there to remind you of the love of God, to remind you of his grace or anything. And that's essentially like why I left. It wasn't the impact. It was the fact that there was no safety net for me outside of, like God. Yeah. So
it was similar for me, I think, but also I had to identify the offense, right? I hadn't realized it just wasn't the experience, because the experience was so big that I kind of carried the experience without being able to identify what the hurt was to uproot that. But yeah, my situation, are we giving actual stories?
We can.
Yeah, well, all of my stories are a little hectic.
That's why I said I don't know if y'all want to go there.
Let's go with I started ministering at like 14, and I was under the leadership of I love my pastor, but we had a interesting youth leader. And long story short, he approached me in an inappropriate manner, derobed, and said some inappropriate things. Now, granted, he didn't touch me. No, nothing essentially happened, but it was inappropriate. It was wrong. And had somebody not came to the door, I don't know what would have happened. Right. Following after that, there was phone calls from him, just trying to speak to me in inappropriate ways in hallways, and it bubbled over.
You're a little girl at that
I
time.
was at that time I was about 15, 16.
You're a little girl.
Yeah, I was a little
Yeah.
girl, yes. And because of trying to keep his name, because again, it's going to be him versus me, my word versus his. Am I looking at this wrong? Am I, because I know how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
I know that I don't feel safe. I know that if I mention this to the right person, it's going to be a situation.
Yeah.
But how is my, at church, what's going to happen? So I mentioned it to one individual, and I thank God for her. She's an evangelist. And I mentioned it to her just in venting. She was a friend of mine. And she was like, wait. We got to take this to the pastor. Long story short, it literally ended up being he said, she said situation. I was getting phone calls from his family to get in front of the church and apologize. I was getting, it went really,
It's
really,
the
really far.
enablers. It's the enablers.
And the thing is, there was people around that had similar stories, but they chose not to share their story. So for me, it was the inaction of the people around me. Like, because there was no actual touching or anything like that, I felt like, okay, I can get over the boundaries that he crossed. Like, I can put distance there. I can heal from that. But the people around me who were supposed to keep me safe, who were supposed to tell this man, you've overstepped your boundaries. You know this is inappropriate. What was your intent to do this?
Yeah.
Like, forget what happened. What was your intent behind this? Those people never spoke up. And if it wasn't for this woman, it got to Bishop. Like, it was bad, And again, I was ministering in the church. So then it came down to, are you able to do that?
Are you fit to do that?
Yes.
Because of this.
Exactly. So
experience?
I left. I left my church that my grandmother had been in for over 50 years. And I vowed never to go to church again. And then a pastor came to me and was like, I kind of know the story. I would love for you to just give my church a try. I went there and ended up in the hospital because of the effects of that other situation caused me to stumble into other things, right? Like, I was looking for security in other places. So I was dating people I shouldn't have been dating, still in the church, but out of the church. And then from there, I had a situation where I ended up in the hospital and I wasn't comfortable enough to call my mom. So I called my pastor and first lady, and they were like, move in with us. It was great. At 18, I received an inheritance because from my father. And long story short, it was borrowed from me from the church. And it was hell and high water to get back. And for me, it was the issue of, you said God said, you told me the church needed, and none of those things were true. So now I'm just fighting because I have a fight in me now. You know what I mean? So after that, in the middle of that, I was actually in class to become a missionary. I was in class in Church of God in Christ. We go to class to get licensed to be a missionary. I left. I walked out of church at 20, and I went back in 2019. Yeah, I was gone a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I was in and out, because there was always a wooing. There was always a pulling, a tugging on my heart. I knew the word. It was just that hurt and the feeling of the hypocrites.
Yeah.
And I had an issue at this point of, can I trust the word coming out of this pastor's mouth?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That
If I
part.
give my money, can I trust it? Although I know God tells me to give it, I have an issue with where it's going now.
Yeah.
So I had developed all these things in me from past situations because I didn't know how to process. I didn't know how to heal. I didn't even know to process, right? I didn't know that healing actually needed to take place. I felt like you got to get over it because growing up, I didn't see people process.
Yeah.
I didn't see people actually seek healing outside of physical healing, no emotional, mental healing.
Or give it to Jesus.
Yeah, you just lay it at his feet like, nah, this is a little heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was a pool, and I started going to City of Refuge. And then I realized that was cool because I'm in the house, but the distractions kept me from the word. So long story short, or possibly too late for that, but I ended up, a friend of mine passed away, and Mount Sinai was really there to support the widow, and it pushed me into Mount Sinai and the church family there. And I would go and show up, and they showed love, and they were kind, and they remembered my name, and they didn't ask for nothing. Just, hey, how you doing? And it was uncomfortable because I'm like, this is not what we're here for. Right. I'm here to see Jesus. I'm here with my friend. But I needed to be in an atmosphere of love and acceptance in order to understand that I needed healing from what I went through, because I didn't even know I needed healing from a lot of that.
And I'm going to go back. So I think what's important for especially as people are looking for churches. I think our generation, they keep talking about we not in the church, but I think there's a desire. I know there's a desire for us to be in the church, or not in the church, but for us to get God. And I feel like the best place to get God is in the church. So y'all figure that out. But you don't have to cover your leaders beyond like what the word of God says, or in uncomfortable situations. And I think a lot of times we bring, or people will say, well, that pastor did this. And it's like, well, if you felt negatively, you speak on that. You don't have to cover your leader, or you don't have to regard him as, of course there's respect, but you can still speak up about it. If you feel like your money is not going into good ground, you can remove yourself from the church, or you can ask questions. You don't have to keep giving.
Well, see, that was the issue. I did ask questions, and I got.
No, not necessarily to you, but then that's a younger age. But then even talking to people that are 30 are like, I'm giving and it ain't well, you gotta go somewhere else.
That part, you gotta know where you're sowing. You gotta know,
you
gotta know the soil that you're sowing in,
right.
and you gotta be able to test.
And you can ask
the fruit.
Yeah, and then now too with social media and stuff, there's a lot, that we can see now. There's a lot the churches are putting out. There's a lot that you can ask. I think churches are a lot more equipped now, with being able to give you something, that's not just the lady that counts offering is writing something in the books, but give you something to show like, well, this is where things are going.
Well, churches now have like business meetings, and they're able to show exactly where all the money is allocated.
The church is a business.
Yeah.
But they're actually running it as the members are now board members almost, to where they're actually being transparent to what you can. Well, at least Mount Sinai, they let us know, and it was comforting, because even before I was a member, I got a call like, hey, I know this has been an issue for you based off of what you've been through. I would just like for you to be a part of it. You're not a member yet, and it's for members only. But I want you to know where your money's going. And that gave me, I said, this phone call alone has given me security.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Like this phone call alone, like if you're gonna do that, like I feel safe with that, and I appreciated that, because these were small things that I didn't realize I needed.
Right.
And I didn't realize they were holes in me when it came to the church.
Yeah. And the leaders, if there are any leaders watching, but lead with transparency.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's a thing too, where if you lead with transparency, it kind of leaves no room for anyone to speculate anything.
Misinterpretation.
Yeah. And I think that's something like to take away on the other side of church hurt, because we are talking about this institution that is hurting, us, or has hurt us. But okay, another question, basically. Well, we talked about why do we think people are experiencing church hurt a lot? And I think we said like the lack of trust. Did you want to touch on an experience or anything, or?
I have so many experiences, but I'm trying to pick the most appropriate one, because I know that there are people watching.
Or even being a preacher's kid and what that.
Let's talk about that. That's the simplest thing to discuss in my experience. So when being a preacher's kid is a battlefield, and it's not for the light of heart. You spoke a little bit earlier about the anxiety of that. Like, there's a lot of anxiety that you don't even know is kind of thrust upon you to be a certain way, to act a certain way. And something I was always taught was, you're always a representation of us wherever you go. My grandparents would tell me that, my father would tell me that, and it was like a support system. So anytime I decided to act a fool, they would remind me like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And that is very triggering, because I should just be able to be a child. I should just be able to be a kid and not have to worry about what adults think or, their perception. So I think that's where a lot of my perfectionism that I like to talk about, that I talked about with you earlier, it comes from, it's rooted in, you always need to be a representation of us. You are an extension of us, instead of just being my own individual. And for a long time, I operated from a place of, okay, what's good for everyone else? And it disabled my ability to just be an individual and to have my own thoughts and have my own mindset. Like, it was very weird. And then also dealing with, like, when my family was no longer in charge of the church after my granddad retired.
Yeah.
He was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I was 12 when and like my reaction to it, they were like, my mom. And
you were 12?
I was 12.
I remember that.
I was 12, 13. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I was told, and Facebook was a new thing at the time. So I went on Facebook and I was just like, oh my God, like you all, like, I don't even remember what I said, but it hinted to trouble at home. And I was like removed off social media for like a month because it was just like, your response to that was inappropriate. Or like when they told I think I found out in church. And I started posting like right after church. I was like crying. I was hysterical because I was just like, what's going on? And just having that backlash of not holding my poker face. And like, I'm 12. What do you mean a poker face? That was weird. And yeah, and I think the transition for me was more so when you grow up in church and when your family's in charge, people show you love. Like they come around you, like they love you, they support you. It was so weird because like there was a new family that came and I have so much love for this family, but I learned people are very funny. With this new family taking over, it was just about, okay, how do we fit in with this leadership? And I kind of felt cast to the wayside for a while because it was just like, oh, well, your family's no longer in charge here. And that wasn't so hard. It was really what came after. Because they were older people. Like my granddad was in his 70s when he decided to retire from the church. And there was this newer pastor and it was his friends he brought in. And just like I went from being, oh, you're such and such's granddaughter or you're such and such's daughter to I'm just fair game in the church. Like I'm a woman that just attends there. But I wasn't a woman. Like I'm 15, 16 years old. And having them look at me a certain way and like just make me really uncomfortable and being pulled to the side. Like maybe you need to change the way, you're dressing, maybe you're just being out of tune. And that was all just very weird. It was adolescence I was going through. So adolescence and puberty and then all this new leadership and then these new people are here and it was too much. It was too much. And it was traumatizing because I'm like the way that these people watched me grow up and now it's like they're sizing me up, like it was really weird.
Yeah, that was interesting. And I remember that too because Southern Missionary Baptist was a pillar in our family. So that was something that my granddad talked about a lot when that transition was happening. I remember your grandfather's first message back. I think I was there for that. And then just a lot of the talks because, certain people thought they were going to get to church and stuff. So they were tussling and stuff.
I wasn't going to say nothing about nothing. I didn't say it.
It was a lot.
Whoever's watching the family, I didn't say it. Jasmine said it. I kept it real PG.
This is my perception of when I was young, right? So that's what we were able to see. Yes, it was a lot. It was a lot going on during that time. And my granddad kind of went through the same thing of not the health thing, but just not necessarily the ownership of the church transitioned. And that was very hard for me. Like, I know that I'm like separation and not being in a certain place, especially when that was the place that I grew up in. That was a difficult transition for me and it was so quick. It was just like, oh, okay, this building and these people that I knew to be my family are no longer
not there
anymore. And we're dispersing and there's turmoil. And I had been coming to this place, since I was like 1, so it was really difficult for me dealing with that. That's another aspect of church hurt. I was really like hurt by that.
Traumatizing.
Yeah. So we're going to go into another break. Stay with us. We're going to get some commercials going and then we'll be back in about 3 minutes. But we're talking about church hurt and we're going to continue on with basically like the switching of churches and all of that.
It's michelada time. Flavorful, handcrafted michi mix to top off with your favorite cerveza. It will have you saying, wow, baby, at every drink. Michelada time is freshly made in small batches, bringing you the perfect michelada every time.
The streets are talking, Jerry. That michelada time is liquid gold. Where can I find it?
Check out our website at www.micheladatimemix.com. That is MICHELADA timemix.com. Follow us on Instagram at michelada_time for news, products, pop-ups, and store locations.
Say less. I'm on it.
Nah, just kidding with y'all. What's going on, man? It's Devontae Green having some fun. We're gonna have fun at our show because that's what we do. TGN Talk, 7:30 p.m. Monday, live from the den. Tap in.
Hey everyone, it's the Primos Chidos.
Hopefully you're enjoying this show, but if it sucks, be sure to check out our show, live Thursdays at 12.
Yeah, join me and my sister and basically my brother as we discuss everything from immigration to ejaculation.
If that sounds interesting, then we're the show for you.
Warning, the following podcast features discussion of sensitive topics, graphic content, and uncensored stupidity. Unless otherwise stated, the featured content is not discussed by professionals or experts. TGN and the Primos Chidos must advise against taking anything said on this program too seriously. Viewer discretion is advised.
Yo, what up? It's your guy E Lamb, the Wild Child of TGN. Make sure you tune in to Courtside Radio every Monday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the TGN app, Courtside Radio, where if we were any closer, we'd be in the game.
Only on TGN Sports.
Oh my God, do you really know? Do you really know who you are, what you want, how to get it? Or are you just living to exist with drama-filled relationships, bored, unfulfilled desires, and now lack has become your hashtag? The difference between a spectacular life or an ordinary one is merely 15 minutes of discovery. Choose to live a fulfilled life narrated and created by your design. Book a 15-minute free consultation with Coach Zena, transformational practitioner specializing in human design and life coaching. Learn what awaits you. Go to CoachZena.com or on Instagram at coach.askzena.
Hey there, business owners. Don't miss our limited time offer. Advertise on the Good News Radio as low as $2 per commercial slot. That's right. Promote your business up to 4 times a day, every day for a month on live radio. If you're interested, email us at contact@tgnradio.net. Once again, that's contact@tgnradio.net.
Are you looking for a daring and creative clothing line? Then look no further. Check out lucrative.com, where upper echelon intersects with the streets. And for you community-minded folks, they donate 1 t-shirt to a local shelter when you make a purchase. Lucrative encourages individuals of our community to create opportunities for themselves. Shop now at lucrative.com. That's lucrative.com. LUCR8TIVE.com. Lucrative. Inspire more, create more.
Hey, we are back. We are continuing this conversation about church hurt. So before we left, we were talking about basically the leaving of churches or being in a part of families that are running churches, and that basically dismantling or just being at a church and, you know, because leaders pass on, and we have an issue with passing of power in churches. We like to die in our seats for some good reason, and it leaves your church in a shamble, basically. So we'll get to that. I know there was a comment. Jasmine had a question for Cara and said, how did she go about? Well, we'll get into that a little longer. So if you're still listening, but a little later. But looking for a new church home, because I think we all did that. Mm-hmm. Sasha touched on it. I have my story. I want to touch a little bit on growing up in the church. My granddad was the pastor, and he decided quickly, I feel like it happened within a couple months, that he wanted to sell the church. And I had grew up in this church, went to preschool in this church. I mean, it was my granddad and grandmother's church. So I grew up there. I would tell people I grew up in Carson and I grew up in Downey because I spent all this time, in this building. And he wanted to sell it. He sold the church. Went to the guy, pastor came, and we were supposed to merge the churches. And one day he came with a program, and it had all his face on it and all of his members and none of our members on there. And it was just a lot. So it was a lot of, you could feel the tension in service because we were all still there. So his family was there, or his church was there, and then our church was there. So you could feel the tension. It didn't really feel good. And I was 2021, didn't necessarily care about being in church like that for real, but I am a church kid, so I was going to church, but I could still feel it, and I was still concerned. So we had some prayer meetings and stuff, like my uncles and stuff. They it was very toxic, and we ended up having a meeting. There were a lot of people speaking. It was kind of negative. I said something, and it was a lot. And after I had made that comment, I said what I had said, that was the last time that I had went to the church. And it was interesting because the preacher that had took over the church, I feel like he was like, well, I know that I'm not doing your grandfather wrong, but I'm not necessarily being the kindest to your grandfather, but he still wanted like access to me because of the community work that I did and stuff. And that to me was like a no. I won't say like, oh, well, they both were doing wrong things. I'm gonna stand behind my granddad regardless, period, point blank. Especially because he has lived his life as a man of God and he upholds that, and I've seen it. So I'm gonna stand beside him. So we had the conversation. And like I said, I got up there and I said what I had to say. And the first lady's response, and I said that, and mind you, I'm only 20 at this time, so everybody is older. I'm maybe 21 at this time, maybe 22, but I'm young. Everybody in there is older. I think I made a comment about I'm the youngest person in here, and I had said something like, it's interesting because we come into here and there's tension, and you can't even really genuinely worship because there's so much going on in here and in church. And she was like, it must be something wrong with you.
See, it be the comments for me because it's the comments.
It's the comment section for me.
Right.
Keep my mouth
And
shut.
that was the first lady. And she said that in front of everybody. And I go, for you to be right. And then for you to be the first lady and then also have all these years above me, and to hear me come in and say that as a young woman of God or whatever, that I am concerned about the experience that I'm having in worship because you guys cannot get it together and you tell me that it's something wrong with me. That was a lot. And I got up and said, what? And whoever was sitting by me was like, Jasmine. And I said, okay. So I sat back down and I mean, at this point, now she apologizes to me every time that she sees me. And she had a conversation and was just like, if God gives me something, I just want you to receive it. But I was like, in that moment, it was just too much. And I was like, it was a lot. And that's not even something that I will attribute to church hurt, because there's more things that have hurt me than that. But that was a piece of it. That whole experience was a lot. And I was like, you guys are coming in here and not even considering like what this building or what this ministry has meant to all these people that are here. So that was literally the last day that I had like been in a church service at my grandfather's, this church that we grew up in. And it was rough for me trying to like process that, because we didn't really have like a transitioning period. It was just like 1 month we were here, 1 month we weren't. I've spent my whole life in this building, so that for me was
like
a lot.
your second home.
Yeah. And it was like not having like just having, and then even for my granddad, that was the thing where I was just like, I don't think he really understood, like he knew his feelings, but understood what it meant for his grandchildren or his children. Like, you raised us in this building and then just quickly made this decision, so yeah, that was that with me. I think sometimes we deal with that and we don't talk about it. Like, you'll hear people that are like, oh, I had to go to a new church. I've been at this church for 30 years. Like, that's a lot.
It is. You have like lifelong ties there and friendships. Like, I have friends from my church that I grew up with that I've known literally since I was like 5.
Right.
I was there up until I was 16, but those are lifelong ties. We went to school together.
Yeah.
We went to church together, and I mean, when you Kojic, you church. So we was at church Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and all day Sundays. And if there's a revival, we're there and selling dinners afterwards. And my grandma made breakfast for Sunday school, and she was a Sunday school teacher. So, these were. So when I left, it was more than just leaving the ministry. It was, and leaving what I thought was home. It was leaving my friends. It was leaving people that I thought was family.
Yeah.
It was it gave me. It hurt because I had trust in my leadership that they would not even just protect me, but say something.
Right.
And the words that I were given in the first situation was, well, he didn't touch you, so there's nothing we can do.
Listen.
And that kind of left a stain, like, okay. So in finding a new church, I didn't want to, but I had somebody come to me and I felt it was safe, because it's very seldom that you have somebody come to you and say, I know what happened and I want you to just worship with us. And so I didn't even pray about it, to be honest. I felt like, wow, okay. And I went, and probably had I prayed about it, I would have said to myself.
Honestly, because I'm very leery of anyone that comes to me was something that God said to them for me, because we're like this. Like, even though I left, like, God never left me.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
that's real.
saying? And he's very evident in my life and what I've been able to accomplish. So although I left a building for many years, like, God has still been walking with me. But I'm always leery when people come to me. God told me to give you a
I am
word.
now.
I don't know you. I don't know you.
Do you
from
know
Adam.
God?
I don't know your Holy
And I
Ghost.
just need to sit for a while. Give me 2 years to just observe you first. Before, don't come to me, because I've been traumatized.
And I'm weary
demonic
now.
spirit.
I'm very aware and weary now. But at 16, you know.
Don't know. You don't know.
And you just got hurt. So it's like you're looking for a safe place to run to.
Yeah.
And but now absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Like, I need to watch you. Let's test this fruit
People
for
are
a minute.
demonic. Like, some of the most demonic people I've ever some of the most demonic people I have ever met in my entire life are church people. And it's disheartening. Like, it's very disheartening, but demonic. Like, that's what they are sometimes. So just finding that voice. Finding God's voice on my own has been.
That's real. And I think too, with me, it was interesting because I had been under safe leadership with my parents and my grandparents. So being at the church that I'm at now with Bishop Roan, this is the first time where I'm like,
Shout out to Bishop
Roan.
Roan.
Wasn't that Bishop Roan?
And First Lady.
Right. Yes, and First Lady Roan. We love you guys. But yeah, this was the first time that I was able to, well, I've decided to be somewhere under a leadership. Because the whole first part of my life, that was like I was forced into that, but it was safe. So I was like, oh girl, you're gonna have to try all these churches out. And then shout out to First Lady. She reached out to me and I started coming, and I was like, okay, this feels like I can do this, because I was like, if I can see your ins and outs, like, and I'm not one to say like, oh, all preachers are bad or anything, but I just want to see, because I've had the experience of seeing the ins and outs of my father and my grandfather my whole life. And I just was like, I need to be attached to my leadership. So that's something that, I'm able to do at Mount Sinai. So I'm glad to be there.
It's funny that you felt like you still feel like you need to be connected to the leadership. Because, girl, I did the exact opposite. I want to go where I don't know anybody.
Right.
And they don't know me. I don't need to know about your personal life. I don't need to be in cahoots. Our families don't need to be close. I just need to be able to come get the word, and then I can leave.
I did that for a season.
Yeah?
Yeah. And it was okay, but I need like personal accountability. I need to trust. And for me, in order, again, just like the church and getting familiar with the church members, I needed to be able to talk to my leaders. Now, I didn't want to, I'm gonna be very honest, I didn't want to go to Mount Sinai.
The church that we're at now.
No, I heard.
I didn't want, but just to be honest, I didn't want to go to any church. I wasn't looking for that. I was happy being a pew member at the church I was going to, which was great. But once I got connected, there was no way I could be disconnected. First Lady, shout out to Bethany, because Bethany was going to be sure that I got my salvation back together. But true discipleship, I would get random text messages, videos. It showed love. They invite you to their house. You can eat with them. You know who they are.
Yeah.
And I needed that because of the trust issues I've had with leadership. And I was close. I was living with my pastor and First Lady. So I knew the ins and outs. And I also knew like what I didn't want to sit under again, or how I didn't want leadership to move. So they love on you hard, and they provide a safe space for you to develop, or just to be comfortable to worship and grow from there. So I did that for a while, but I also need connectivity, because I need accountability. I need to be able to serve in a capacity that's possibly more than an usher. That ain't my ministry, and I'm slowly getting back to that space, because I do think I found Mount Sinai to be a safe space, and that's wonderful. Even my grandmother, like, she told my old pastor where I am, and he's like, don't leave. And that's big for your first pastor.
Even my granddad and my dad, they because I don't go to church. Clearly, I don't go to church with them. You make the comment about leaving the family, so that's one thing I advocate for. Get up from under them. I had to leave, and I had to leave because my family wasn't understanding the separation between being my family member and being a spiritual leader. and understanding who I was growing to be spiritually, who I was growing to be in the natural, and understanding that that person is not the same little Jazz that was sitting here that y'all was trying to teach about salvation and stuff. Like, we got it. I talk to God. You go talk to him about me. Figure out what it is that we got going on, because we tight like this. But that was something I knew for me to grow more, I had to get from up under them. And as you can, and then when we initially left my grandfather's church, we went to my uncle's church. So I was still up under family, and I'm like, nah, that's not it. And then I also needed to be somewhere where I could grow. Now, let me tell you, if you're looking for a church home, Mount Sinai,
come on,
it's
over.
In Pomona.
But a church alive is worth the drive.
What did you say?
What church alive?
A church alive is worth the drive.
Is that your church saying?
Yeah.
Bethany got me with that when I was like, I gotta come just for
right.
that.
Because I'm sure most people on here know. What's up, Ash? Ash is watching. She also goes to Mount Sinai. But my church is so right. My church is so supportive of me. And that's really cool. So they really are. So I needed to be somewhere where I could be poured into, but then also I could pour back into the ministries or whatever with my talent. So if I do a lot, right, with media. I do a lot with graphic design, y'all. Lord, do a lot, right? With speaking or whatever. And if you're not doing anything with your church, I'm sorry, but I can't sit there because I have gifts to offer. So for me, I had to be somewhere where I could offer my gifts. And I didn't even mention for them to wear the shirts, right? They wore them last February during the pandemic when nobody was in the church. They wore them. And then I walked in this February one Sunday. I didn't even have the shirt on myself. And they had the shirts on, that. Yeah. So and really cool. And it's been a beautiful thing because I'm able to give. And they're able to give to me. I think I was telling my first lady, I don't think a month has went by since I've been there. And I've been there since September of 2020, where at least one person hasn't reached out to me and been like, do you have merch in your car?
That's dope.
So my church home supports me. And it's not something like, oh, they support me because I operate in the certain ministries there. Mm-hmm. It's just, I found a church home that was beneficial to me and what I have to offer. And they also give to me. So I think that's like important as we are maneuvering or as you're looking for a church home. Like the question was like, what can you give? And then what do you need to receive? And how can those things, align? But I think I really found, like my niche. But like I said, if you don't have anything going in your church, I'm sorry, I can't sit there because I have too much to offer. I have too much to offer, and I'm willing to give it to the body of Christ. I'm willing to go out there and give and do some kingdom work with my gifts. But
come on, kingdom
if you ain't
work?
doing nothing, I can't sit up under your
What do you mean
ministry?
if they're not doing anything? I don't understand that.
Like there's churches that are doing podcasts, there's churches that are developing their media ministry, there's churches that are trying to get there's seeds are going into good ground.
Okay.
Or they're trying to get the millennial group to be more, involved. They're having conversations.
That's another thing. It seems like there's a lot of young people at your church.
It's about us and
Wait, do you all have some sort of a night? I see a night and there's a lot of young people.
Oh, that's over the hump. That's something different. But that's something different. But no, but we have a good amount.
We have a nice size young adults
of like our under like 45 group.
Yeah.
So
under 45.
Mm-hmm.
Under 45. What's going on?
Inclusion.
We might exclude
you can't put me with the 45-year-old.
I mean, it works.
It works.
Category.
It works.
It's a different thing.
Because
there's a variety of ages, right? It's a variety of
different.
ages where you are in life. We have a melting pot of ages, and it works, or it's working. We are able to talk about things, discuss things, feed. Not always agree.
Stop. No, seriously.
No.
I think because I'm 26, so I think I'm
well, she the baby of the group.
I'm on the lower end of it. So everybody else is in their 30s. So you're looking at a 30 to 45 group.
But Jazz also is.
You're looking at a 30 to 42 group. So I think,
I was gonna say a church mother at heart.
No, because only when you grow up in church you can see another person that grew up in church. Because it's like you just have a spirit about you.
We have
around older people.
Yes.
You naturally just You know,
You got these old tendencies.
So Ash said under 40. So yeah, so that we'll explain it that way. I'm on
Thank you,
I'm
Ash.
on the outskirt of it because I'm 26, but everybody else is 30 to 40. So I'm the outskirt. The 40-year-olds are not the outskirt.
Okay.
But you know, we make it work, you know?
Yeah.
But let's do not moving forward, but church hurt happens, and clearly, as you guys have been hearing us say, that we are still a part of the church.
Absolutely.
We still have decided to be a part. But what are we like? First of all, how are we entering into these spaces now? What are we being mindful of? How are we like making sure the safest space for us?
I think me just not having relationships with people in leadership. I don't need to have a relationship with you to get the word of the Lord at this point in my life. It might change, you know, it might be seasonal, but I don't necessarily want that. I don't want the first lady texting me. I prefer not.
If it's
to.
first lady wrong,
You gonna want them text messages. They bless your heart.
No, and I'm sure like it's beautiful that you welcome it, but like the place I'm at, like I don't need to. And the way I was actually referred there was my hair salon. My stylist, she was telling me how the first lady goes there. You should go to this church, and I was like, okay, don't introduce us. But yeah, so just being mindful that I have gifts to offer, but we're also just going back to the sanctuary. So just knowing that I can just be in attendance and I'm not the big fish in a small pond. That's another thing, because I grew up in a family church that transitioned into something else. But like, I don't want to be the person with the most stuff going on in the room. That's important to me. I need to be around people that are doing, like, they need to be miles ahead of me, which is pretty cool. Anytime I walk in, I don't know who I'm going to see in there. And I like that. Because the other day I saw like a couple of influencers that I've been following them for the last decade, like since I first created my social media. And I'm like, wow, like we get the same word. All right, I'm on the right track. Like something's going to give, something's going to happen, which is really cool. And it's not just about the social aspect for me. For me, it's just about what can I tap into spiritually that's going to get me to the next level of my growth and my personal development and my spiritual development and in my professional development, because I'm learning that they're all linked.
Let me tell you, I'm sorry, but for my business, I think becoming attached to the church that I'm at now and being up under leadership, there are some things that my bishop has said to me that literally, whether he said it and the season was about to start or he ignited it, I don't know. But literally, he's prophesied things into my life that were extremely, that were just true. The prophecy came true, and it started just a wealth of things that were happening in my life. And then also, you guys have heard my story about arthritis. Most people, right? Like, oh, go get some turmeric, go do this, right? He was on me about going back to the doctor. He was on me about just like being more mindful of my health and stuff. That wasn't something that I was getting at any other church. So I really do feel like God will give you a leader like after your heart for sure, because I needed that. And I also needed somebody, or just people like you said, like Mount Sinai, it's some people in there, you know, like one of the ladies like owns, I think, some fat burgers or something. And I'm like, when I heard that, I was just like, oh, okay. So like, you know, we're in good company. Or there's couples that are in there that are getting ready to retire, but they did it the right way. And you're seeing them live like beautiful lives after they've raised kids and stuff. Like I'm not seeing a whole bunch of like saints struggling, right? Like, oh, I got a check in the mail. Now I'm able to get some gas, you know? So I think that's important too, is who is in the congregation, you know? So, important. And then like I was saying with your business, like your faith walk, it'll fuel it. Like it'll literally fuel your business. Like it'll fuel it. Y'all see what's going on. So I can only attribute that to like me being more dedicated to my faith and my walk with God. So, but yeah, I forgot the question that I asked you, but
I forgot the question as well.
How are you operating or coming into the space and being like maintaining your safety?
So for me, because of the trauma that I experienced in the church, it also tapped into some of the childhood trauma that I had. So I chose to go the therapy route. And I also sat with Bishop and First Lady in counseling, you know, because even for my personal growth and all that, therapy is great. And I'm like, shout out to my therapist. She's amazing. She's also spiritual, so I get the spiritual aspect to that.
Therapy.
Hey, I got the short shirt too. So I got that healing part, and then to sit with my pastor and first lady, and for them to be able to counsel me and to build trust there was huge for me. And now even going in the sanctuary, because we have a group of friends, and I think I've told y'all this a million times. I didn't come to church for friends.
Yeah.
I came to church for Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
I used to sit in the back of the church, and as soon as it was time for the prayer to be in, I'm out the door before he says amen, because I didn't realize I was still dealing with church hurt. I'm being afraid to deal with people. So
what I do, like as soon as I go in, I will participate in praise and worship.
Mhm.
I want to make friends.
but that for me, I realized like I'm still dealing with hurt. I'm pushing people away when I've learned in this group that there's healing, like friendships are forming, like sisterhoods are forming, and I needed that, and I needed to see that it's possible in a healthy way. And me getting up and doing what I was doing was not it. So I had a few people in the church that would just pull on me a little bit. Let's go to lunch. Let's do this. And it started to build my trust. Like, this is a safe space. I also read the book Safe People, which taught me what safe spaces were. Yeah. And it also taught me when I wasn't always a safe space to other people. So I did a lot of searching and uprooting in order to feel safe to go back. And then also discernment, like you got to pray. Like you really, really got to pray about it, because fear is not of God. Fear is not even necessarily something that we're facing. It's something that we might be, afraid that might happen. And dealing with that spirit was huge for me, and also reconciliating with people in church. Like, it's okay to have friends in church. I met Jazz at church. Like, this is my homie, But I have known I've had bad relationships. So healing from those, and then also learning what was the issue in those relationships, what caused the issue in those relationships, what was not safe there, and how can I rectify that in myself and then the people I have around me as well. And then also being smart in how I move around people, wait, don't just give yourself, wait, learn, test that fruit, because observe, because people will come in one way and leave another way, and it's not to say that they're terrible people. It just might show where they are in their healing walk. Yeah. They might not be at that place. Yeah.
And I think it's also important to know that, like, we're in different parts of our journey, because I think, maybe 2 years ago, neither of us were where we are, in our journey as relates to our faith or business, whatever. But it's okay to be where you are in your journey. And I know there's probably people on here that are not at church, or that do go to church looking for a new church home or whatever. And I think, like, where you are, it's okay for right now, but we always need to, like, be mindful of, like, what is the next step, or how am I trying to make this better, right? If I am at a church, how am I trying to be more active? How is my spiritual life, like, getting better?
Go to a church that's going to challenge you to want to spiritually grow,
right?
To want to know more of the word. That like our church, well, we church a lot, but we have Bible study after Bible study. We have something called Life Group, where we sit down together in communities
all week,
break it down. And it's something that is good because it builds community, but it also, you get a different understanding of the word, like, and to be able to commune with people in church and hear what God is to them versus what he is to me. It helps to put the pieces to the puzzle so we can understand actually the full story of this thing.
For sure. Well, I didn't do a good job with this, but we're wrapping up. We have less than a minute left, but this is a good conversation. I would love to have y'all back, because we didn't even get to all of the questions, but I hope this conversation did y'all well. I hope that you guys can share this with people. But thank you guys for coming
for the invite.
This was dope. So we're definitely going to do a part 2. We have to, because this was like really good. So yeah, we're going to get up out of here. But yeah, we'll be back with episode 14 next week, 3:30 every Friday. But stay tuned. Please follow them on Instagram, the Sasha Pelham.
Yes.
And then Cara Craig Show. Is it the Cara Craig Show? Okay. Yeah. And then if you can also just go on the Instagram and look at the previous posts. But all right, y'all. I was going to say be blessed, and I'm going to say be blessed.
Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. These guys are our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow